welcome back to the channel, and I'll be offering you an energetic update and a forecast for the coming solstice. It's summer solstice here in the southern hemisphere and obviously winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. So we're talking about obviously polarity, and this is a key pivotal astrological moment combined with the two solstices, the two equinoxes, to form this four cardinal points in this way. So it's having a deep significance, and also in some calculations reflecting a change in the season. So the summer solstice here in Australia will be on 22nd of December at 2:12 p.m. Queensland time. So that's obviously an auspicious moment for meditation, for setting the intentions, for setting goals, for considering what is important to keep with you moving forward into the new year and the new cycle, and also what's significant to leave behind, which will be a theme that is going to be becoming more and more prominent as we move into the shift. Is not just what am I moving forward into, but what am I leaving behind, because this is an important part of our own awakening, is to determine consciously who and what and the different components of our life that we want to keep with us going forward, and to consciously decide what that's going to look like for each of us, which will be unique. This journey is unique. There's no one size fits all, but this has been a big thing. So obviously there's a lot of pressure, as many of you are aware, on intimate relationships. There's a lot of relationships that have been breaking up and so on. This trend will continue. I feel like this is something that will continue simply because souls are no longer aligned in this same way. Like two souls come together to learn from each other, and then when that phase is over, then the relationship does end. And because we're in this process of accelerated awakening, this time of accelerated evolution, it means that the process is quickening. So this is something not to be fearful of, because remember, when one door closes, another one opens. But it's just something to be aware of, that all kinds of relationships will run their course and come to conclusion. That's including friendships, also people having various challenges with their family relationships as well. And these need to be, of course, managed and so on. But it's becoming more and more obvious that toxic people simply have no place in the life of people who are serious about the awakening and moving through this process as quickly and effectively as possible. And the people who are toxic in our life are becoming more and more, it's becoming more and more obvious who they are. So as much as we should be considering where we're going forward, we should also contemplate where we've come from and honor that journey, and also think about who and what we're leaving behind and in what context. So this will be a forecast for the solstice. I'll be giving a longer, more detailed, more in-depth analysis of 2020 and beyond, simply because we're obviously entering a new decade. This is not really appropriate in some ways because of the disparity between the Gregorian calendar and, if we can call it, real time or astrological time, but it's still at the subconscious level for the collective. It has a significance, the new decade that's coming. So stay tuned for another video on that, which will actually be more in depth, and we'll be giving a longer term view of how I see things shaping up for the next decade, which is going to be quite powerful, because we're kicking off with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which is going to be quite a powerful astrological signature. And there's been a lot of talk about this astrological signature, so I won't go into it too much now, but at least if you're aware of your own astrological chart, look at the house that conjunction is going to occur in, because that's where it will impact you the most. But it will still impact the collective significantly, because Pluto is a transpersonal planet, and on that it will be a catalyst for change, for all kinds of different things showing up in the collective, which at the moment it's really quite overwhelming to see what's actually occurring at a planetary level as far as the various challenges as they're coming to us in different parts of the world, particularly with the earth changes that are going on. But I'll come back to that. But the big thing, as I see it in the short term and also in the medium to long term, is massive social turmoil, massive social disruption, I do not feel that this can be avoided in any way now, simply because of the abuse of power by so many of the leaders around the world, completely ineffective leadership, the corruption, the inability at times even to execute good policies for the people in that particular country, and it's becoming more and more apparent to more and more people. So this is something that you'll see as a mega trend going forward, not just in this forecast that I'm giving from solstice to equinox, but going forward to next 2020 and beyond, because people have simply had enough, and it's becoming broader and broader in the context of people seeing things for how they are more and more. It's not some second-rate conspiracy or some fringe idea or something. The government simply are not elected to do what they've been given the mandate to do, and it's becoming more and more clear to more and more people. Great example is what's happening at the moment in Australia with the bushfires. For want of a better word, Prime Minister Scott Morrison here has come under very widespread criticism, and even now there's various petitions going around calling for him to be removed from office officially, whether there's a dissolution of Parliament or a vote of no confidence in his leadership. It's actually quite staggering the pace at what this is generating, and it really reflects the people who are not happy with the way that the government, in particular Scott Morrison, has been handling the bushfire situation in Australia. And the icing on the cake with that is he's actually just gone on holiday to Hawaii, and meanwhile these fires are raging all around the country. Even another one's just started today close to where I live in Peregian on the Sunshine Coast here in Australia. So the effect is basically more and more people are questioning the status quo. And we're seeing these earth changes, which is something I've been talking about in the various forecasts that I give. And many of these things are like layered on top of each other. It's not like when I make one forecast on one particular trend or aspect of what's happening on the planet will go away. It's more, it adds to, it has a continuity. So these earth changes that I've been discussing, I feel will continue much deeper level and causing all kinds of changes at a geological level. The volcano in New Zealand was another example of this. Sudden shifts, bushfires appearing in Australia suddenly, and there's all the other challenges that are happening around the world. That's just what's happening, I guess, locally in my part of the world, but I know that you watching this will be aware of many earth changes that are happening, and this is something I expect to definitely continue as we move into 2020. So we're seeing the social unrest in places like Hong Kong, in Chile, various other places around the world, France even still, with the yellow vest movement. And this, in my view, is completely baked in the cake. I mean, there is absolutely no way that we're going to move forward through this paradigm shift without greater social unrest, without greater protests, without greater activism. This is going to be one of the key features as we move into the new decade as well. So get involved in the causes that you feel called to, and remember that your voice counts. And the idea of the government is actually to represent you. And if they're not representing you, then be heard. Take action to be heard and have your concerns raised. Make your voice known. So this effect, though, of this dissatisfaction with many of the social, political, environmental, economic issues that are transpiring around the world is actually just simply awakening more and more people. It's quite amazing to see, whether it's a decline in the viewership in mainstream media, that's something that will continue to decline. Simply, whether it's reporting the true state of the economy, people aren't drinking the Kool-Aid anymore and aren't buying into the fact that things are all rosy with the economy, particularly in Australia. We're heading towards a recession here in Australia. This is not economic advice or financial advice, but we're already in a technical recession in terms of the retail sector, and we've got a long way to go. The true figures with the housing market are not really being revealed properly by the metrics that are reporting them, and there are people out there doing a lot of good work around that as well, but you can see that at least here in Australia, definitely a recession at best case scenario in 2020. So that's something to consider as well. The broader economy is starting to decline faster and faster. So this is basically fueling a lot of the levels of the awakening at the what I refer to it as the lower levels, the engaged with the lower levels. The more sort of spiritual dimension of the shift is something that I'll refer to now quickly, but really the big one that's really coming through since my last equinox forecast is what I'm referring to it at the moment at least as the multi-dimensional nature, as it's showing up as a conscious astral projection. So by that, what I am starting to experience is this phenomenon of a conscious astral projection that is occurring obviously during waking hours. Many people refer to astral projection as being something that occurs when we sleep, and that's true, that's valid. But this astral projection is occurring completely conscious, completely awake, and feels like a separation between the physical body and the astral body. And it's very sharp, it's very slow. It's very fast. It happens very quickly and stops. It's not something that is ongoing, but it appears that this is the beginning of the multi-dimensional shift and us becoming consciously aware of our multi-dimensional nature. I mean, we're all multi-dimensional from the perspective that we are actually projecting every night. So this we're doing subconsciously, and this can be in the form of dreams, can also be the subconscious mind, but now the paradigm shift is the energy coming through, the subtle energy is allowing us to experience, even very briefly, very suddenly, this conscious astral projection. So you'll notice that when you become more aware of your astral body, your etheric body, occurs this brief separation. It's not an expansion like in meditation or pranayama or something like this. It's actually a separation, and it can even come with a very subtle jolt. Very, very subtle, but it can still be there. So that's something that's to pay attention to, and to understand that at an energetic nature, the shift really is starting to get some serious momentum behind it when these sorts of paranormal things start to become more and more apparent in our daily life. The next one is the heart palpitations that are still continuing to occur. People experiencing various pains in their chest and feeling that it's some kind of heart disease, heart problem, heart palpitations, all these sorts of things. Well, it could be that. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of every single person who's having this, but this phenomenon is also definitely part of the ongoing paradigm shift, and it will actually feel like mildly painful, not like sharp pains like you see if someone has a heart attack there, and like physically the heart is actually really painful, but it's actually a connection to the earth itself, to the shift that's happening with the earth, this symbiotic nature we have with the earth. And this can be illustrated in this example that they did with grandfather clocks. And they put all these clocks in a room together, and I can't remember the actual story behind this. I think this phenomenon was discovered actually accidentally with this. But what they found is this process of entrainment. And the entrainment meant that the biggest clock in the room, with these grandfather clocks that have the pendulum swinging, they found that the biggest clock with the biggest pendulum, like the biggest grandfather clock in the room, all the other smaller clocks actually fell into entrainment with the biggest grandfather clock, and by that they all actually started to have the same rhythm. And this is exactly what's occurring on the earth, and that's at some deeper levels our relationship with the earth is starting to become more apparent, which is very well known in indigenous culture. It's very well documented. But this relationship with the earth and our heart becoming more in sync, and the fact that we're going through this shift is actually having biological implications on our nervous system, on our body. And obviously the analogy I'm referring to here is that the biggest grandfather clock is actually the earth itself. So this means that we are having a state of entrainment with the earth. The more we actually start to elevate our vibration, the more we actually connect with the energetic frequency of the earth, which can be measured in terms of the Schumann resonance, in terms of this vibration, the electromagnetic frequency, and so on. And we ourselves are electromagnetic beings. So it makes sense that we have this really symbiotic relationship with the earth herself as she goes on her journey of awakening, as Gaia awakens as well. And that all ties back into the earth changes and everything as well. So the activations, the downloads of the prana, the activations of the chakras and so on now is becoming stronger, more frequent, and the activations are lasting longer. They're tying in with some astrological configurations, like the recent ones with the Jupiter and the conjuncting the galactic center. These sorts of configurations, they really are basically giving a strong activation of the different chakras, and there can even be different aspects of the chakras that get activated. For example, today is, when I'm recording this, is Wednesday. On Monday, there was a very, very, very strong activation that went on for hours of the back of Sahasrara. So that's an aspect of Sahasrara, and this crown chakra being activated predominantly at the back of the head. So we see that there's lots happening, lots energetically happening, lots physically happening. And to be honest, it's a little bit hard to keep up with everything at times, isn't it? Particularly with the geopolitics and some of these things are occurring at the bigger picture, as we see the pieces being moved around the chessboard to produce the causal effect of awakening. And that's, I know people are overwhelmed and their nervous system is a bit fried after this year with so many difficult challenges at a personal level and seeing what's going on in the world. But these chess pieces are being moved around the board for the awakening. And I think that that's probably the most important thing to take from this whole message in this video, is that the awakening is happening in a way that would not seem apparent to a lot of people. If you're just looking at the new age kind of love and light, unicorns and rainbows type way of perceiving reality, then you can't necessarily appreciate the wider view of what is actually happening as we experience everything coming to light, the darkness coming to light, as things become more exposed, more clear, and irrefutable. Like the truth is becoming irrefutable, and we're seeing this more and more and more. So I'll leave this here because I'm going to make this video for the 2020 forecast and beyond. Wow, the next decade is going to be really quite amazing. When we get to 2029, I'm sure that the topics, if I'm still making these videos, will be wildly different to what I'm addressing today. So keep tuned for that video, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Have a great solstice. Take some time out for some contemplation, from some intention setting, some meditation, some healing, some yoga, some tai chi, qigong, connected with nature, all the good things that you already know. But the question is, are we doing them? So all the best, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.